How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 54. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for coming and listening to another episode. And happy holidays for anybody out there celebrating. Hopefully you had a chance to take some time off, hang out with some family and friends, and not have to think about work for a little bit. Definitely doing that on my side. But on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the new film that just released on Christmas Day, and that is Ferrari, starring Adam Driver and directed by Michael Mann. I was super interested in this film, mostly because of Adam Driver. I've seen him in the Star Wars films, and I've seen him in other types of projects. He's come out in SNL, and he's just such a hilarious, and he's a great actor. So I thought, I want to give this a shot. And also because I was curious about Enzo Ferrari, who this film is really revolved around. What was he like? What is his story around him and founding the Ferrari company? I really don't have expectations for this film. I'm not really a car guy. I don't know the history of Ferrari at all. So it's really just a great perspective for me just to understand who Enzo Ferrari was and how he was as a person. I know that this is mostly just going to be more of like a biopic, so it's not going to be 100% accurate, but at least gives you a good idea and an image as to who this character or who this person really was in real life as well. Well, now that I've actually gotten a chance to check out the film in theaters, let's go ahead and dive into some of my overall thoughts, pros and cons, and overall review of the movie. Overall, I really enjoyed Ferrari. I thought it was a good time to understand, the struggles that Enzo Ferrari had in regards to keeping his company, the problems that he had with his immediate family, the problems he was having to juggle with this new family that he had, and all the different ways that he had to deal with the media in those times of the 1950s and 60s as well. Really good stuff. Let's go ahead and dive into some of my pros to start off with. My first pro has got to be the performances. I think that, Enzo Ferrari, played by Adam Driver, and also his wife in this film was played by Penelope Cruz. She ended up playing Laura Ferrari. Both of them had outstanding performances. I'm going to talk a little bit more about their performances later on in a different segment of the podcast, but I thought they just completely embodied both of their characters, and they just made it feel so real every time they interacted. It felt like it was a very, tense and budding kind of a relationship. Just to kind of give that kind of spoiler if you haven't seen the film, Enzo Ferrari and Laura Ferrari, they are married, but they're technically separated. Enzo Ferrari has his own family separate from his wife. He actually has a mistress. They're not married, but they do have a child together. And so you're seeing, this kind of relationship throughout the film. As soon as you meet both of them, you have Laura Ferrari that kind of challenges Enzo in multiple different aspects. Yet, the reason that they're not separated is because of the fact that they still run the Ferrari company together. And so it's a very interesting type of a relationship where immediately you see, again, there's these two opposing forces. Neither one is going to budge, but they still respect each other in the fact that, hey, I might not like you anymore, you might not like me anymore, but we're still going to be running a company together, and we're still going to help each other try to find success with this company. And so it's very interesting, and that kind of leads into those great performances by Penelope Cruz as well as Adam Driver. They both, again, just make that relationship feel so real. It makes it feel like, okay, like at any moment, one of them might want to try to kill the other, the other one. There's just so much type of like tension between them two. And to add another layer to that, one of the other reasons why there's so much tension is not only because they are running the company together, but they also had their own child that ended up passing away. And again, it just adds more and more trauma to what they have to deal with, which ends up showing why they ended up kind of having a divide between the two. But their performances just made that relationship feel so real and so relatable that, again, it just elevated this movie for me and made it just much more enjoyable and much more engaging as you kind of went through the story as well. Another pro that I had in regards to the film Ferrari was the different types of cinematography or the shots that they had when they showed different racing scenes. So the film revolves around the race called the Mille Miglia, which is a 1,000-mile race across Italy. It is basically the goal of Enzo Ferrari to win this race in order to prove that the Ferrari company is not disastrous, is not going to be bankrupt, and it's not going to be bought by anybody else. It is something that will be strong and show the world that this Ferrari company is made for racing. And so that's really what the kind of film revolves around, a part of it at least. And because of that, they show a lot of different types of racing scenes. And as they go along this 1,000-mile race in the Mille Miglia, they have these beautiful shots of Italy where they're driving through the mountains, where they're driving through the city, and there's just some beautiful kind of shots that are taken either very close to the racing cars or also taking very far away at a distance. And it just looks very beautiful. They had some great shots. I also really enjoyed one of the specific racing shots that they were able to do where, because this is the 1950s and 60s, the racing cars are a little bit more old school. So it's all, kind of like an open type of a seat, and you can kind of see behind the driver. And it was very cool because they did like a third person shot where one of the racers was trying to break a world record for fastest, driving lap. And you could see him kind of going over the shoulder, and it just looks so clean because you could see almost like as if you're in the actual car with them. And I thought it was a very cool and unique shot. You typically get perspectives from outside of the driver's seat or from the side of the driver's seat, but this one was literally over the shoulder. And I think that was able to be accomplished because of the fact that they were using like an old school type of a racing Ferrari car. So I thought that was really cool as well. But some of the shots, again, of this film were really breathtaking, especially when they were doing the Mille Miglia race as well. Final pro for me was the way that the film made you feel in regards to the setting and the environment of the 1950s and 60s. It took place in Italy. But what I love most about it is that it took in like a small town of Italy, because Enzo Ferrari would walk around, he would go to the barber shop, he would visit family, he would go to all these different types of places. And I just really love that it kind of felt like they were actually shooting in Italy. Different types of set pieces that were shown. It just, again, made it feel like you were in that kind of a world and in that time. And I love it when films do that, because there's a lot of times where films they kind of design it in a way where it kind of looks like it, but it moves so fast that you don't really get to kind of capture that type of essence of where the character currently is. But in this film, it definitely feels like, hey, they're in this time of the 1950s and 60s in Italy, where it was much simpler times. Yes, you still had media that was following Enzo around, trying to ask him questions. But it was, you could see him kind of walking around, driving around the city of Italy, and it looked very nice. So I really appreciated that. Again, it felt like it was very much shot on location. It may not have been Italy exactly, but at least the different types of areas and places that they visited felt very much like, hey, this is like a small town in Italy that, people can just kind of walk around, everybody knows you, and it just felt very real, which is what I appreciated. I do have a couple cons in regards to the film. One of the cons I have is in regards to some of the crash scenes that occurred throughout the film. Again, no offense to the director, to the team that kind of shot these films. To me, it looks like some of the crashes, it almost looks like it's like a crash test dummy that is like in the car. And so it looks very wonky to that extent. It was just like a minor nitpick. It didn't take me out of the film, but it did look kind of awkward at times. And there was like maybe 2 or 3 kind of crash scenes. One of them was actually a guy that kind of flew out of his car. But it was a very quick cut that it just kind of made it very awkward. Like, okay, when did he start flying out? I just see him in the air all of a sudden. So that was just a minor nitpick on my side. Another con that I also had was the film's kind of narrative not focusing on a specific, avenue or path to go down. It starts off by, showing that the very contentious relationship between Laura and Enzo Ferrari. And you think, okay, this is going to be really where the story revolves around. It's going to be revolving around how they try to make this company work, even though they both might hate each other and, they both are living different lives. But then you also get introduced to, the mistress of Enzo Ferrari. And so you think it's going to be about family, but then they also kind of start sprinkling in, well, the Ferrari company is going to be bankrupt. They need to find a partner to finance them to see if they can produce more cars. And so it seems like it might go down that path of like, okay, well, we need to save it. And then they also introduced the race aspect to it as well. So I feel like there was a lot of different types of paths and avenues that they went down, and they didn't really stick to one. And it kind of, you can kind of feel it in the story where, again, you're getting a lot of different types of concepts and ideas of like where this story might take place or where it's going to go or how are these kind of characters going to develop. And instead it kind of just, all kind of comes to an end where, the race is really going to be the most important part in order to save the company, but a lot of the relationships are also going to be very important as well. So it felt like there was, again, a lot of ideas that they wanted to bring out, but not one was very much focused in on to kind of come from beginning to end to a full arc of completion, at least for me. Hopefully that kind of makes sense in that regard. I just felt like I wanted there to be like, yes, this is a complete type of an arc for this character, or this is a complete wrap up of this story. And it did wrap up in regards to the Ferrari company winning the Mille Miglia race. But again, I felt like there was a lot left over in regards to different types of relationships and stories that could have been completed as well. Other than that, I didn't have much other kind of cons for the film. Again, overall, I really enjoyed what I watched in theaters. Again, it was a great story to understand what Enzo Ferrari had to balance in his life, not only to keep his company, but to have a family with the mistress that he actually loved, but still being able to have a relationship with his wife. And so it was a lot of different types of things that were going on, a lot of juggling in regards to Enzo Ferrari's life, but I still enjoyed what I was able to kind of capture throughout the narrative and being able to follow. Even though I had a couple of cons with some of the things that came out, I still don't think it was a film that like, oh, you know what, it just kind of sucked after that. No, this film is still pretty much top tier in regards to performances. Really good stuff by Penelope Cruz and Adam Driver. Would I recommend to kind of go watch it in theaters? I would say that you don't have to go out and watch it in theaters. Again, I don't think the theater experience adds too much. It does have some very quality shots in regards to some of the racing scenes. But if you not a big fan in regards to any of the actors, or if you don't really care about any kind of racing scenes, you can definitely wait for this film for streaming as well. All right, everybody, those are my thoughts on Ferrari. Let's go ahead and dive into my favorite performance. I think this is probably the most excited that I am about, talking about Ferrari, was really the performances of Penelope Cruz as Laura Ferrari and Adam Driver playing Enzo Ferrari. These two were really the reason why the film was so good. Again, me having my own kind of cons about going through and the story of having too many different ideas, there was one thing that it was for sure, and that was that these two actors put on a heck of a performance for their characters. You had Enzo Ferrari, played by Adam Driver, that again had to play this man that was juggling a lot, right? He had to juggle the fact that he may be losing his company, the fact that he was very competitive and he needed to instill that competitiveness into his drivers in order to win the Mille Miglia. But he also had to show that he was a family man as well. Then you had Laura Ferrari, who had to portray the mother that was in pain and grieving for her son who she lost. And then having to grieve that, she was going to have to give up her power in the Ferrari company to Enzo so that he can bargain and try to get more financing for the company. And then you also had to deal with the fact that she had to understand that Ferrari had another family, had another son. And how was she going to be able to deal with that, knowing that they lost a son years ago? So a really great job by both of those actors. They just showed a wide range of different emotions in regards to what they had to portray. If I had to choose one, again, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a toss-up. I would have to go with Penelope Cruz as Laura Ferrari, because she is really the only character in this film that was able to challenge Enzo Ferrari. When you go throughout the film and you watch it, you have Enzo challenging the media, challenging his drivers, challenging his managers. Everybody around him is intimidated by him. There's only one person that is not intimidated by Enzo Ferrari, and that is his wife, Laura. And she stands up to him at every single moment, every single scene. It is just incredible job by Penelope Cruz to be able to show off that type of raw energy of intimidation, where every time she was on screen, you could feel like, oh man, like not only is Enzo a little bit kind of worried, I'm a little worried, because you don't know what she's going to do. She had a gun at the beginning of the film. She shot that gun right at Enzo Ferrari just to kind of give him a warning. So there's a lot of different things that can kind of pull off. And you just didn't know where her character was going to go. And I freaking loved it. So Penelope Cruz, great job as Laura Ferrari. And she was my favorite performance in the Ferrari film. All right, moving on to my next segment, which is going to be covering the favorite moment or scene of the movie. This is going to sound a little bit redundant and might sound like a broken record, but I don't really have a favorite scene in regards to the film. I actually have favorite moments, and it's the moments that Laura and Enzo are interacting. Anytime they were on screen together in the same, scene, kind of talking about different things about the company, talking about their son, it just felt so real. It felt so like you were so invested in what they were going to have to do, right? In one of the scenes, you have Enzo having to tell Laura that she needs to give up her half of the company, her stake. Because if she maintains her stake, people, that are going to finance and help out Ferrari, they're going to question, well, why do you have to ask your wife for that permission? Or why do you have to ask her for permission? Or why do we have to involve two people? It would make more sense if only one person had control. And so Enzo had to have that tough conversation with Laura. Laura then has a crazy and rough conversation with Enzo about knowing about the child that he has with the mistress. She had no clue for years that child was born. And so she now has to come to the facts that Enzo has basically moved on. It almost like as if he's forgotten the child that they both ended up having, and that ended up passing away. And so you see another tough conversation and tears being shown on Laura's face, kind of showing how enraged she is at Enzo for keeping that from her as well. And so again, at any time they were both on screen together was the highlights of this movie. And it's really because of those moments is why I would still recommend you watch it. Even if it is streaming, I still recommend you watch it because it's just so intense. And I feel like it's definitely relatable to different types of situations that we've been in with loved ones as well. So again, those moments between Enzo and Laura are some of my, again, favorite moments of this movie. Again, I can't pick a particular one, but anytime they are together talking about business, talking about family, it just feels so intense and so real that again just makes the movie, it just doesn't even feel like a movie anymore. You're just kind of watching these two people kind of interact. It's so awesome. So definitely recommend that piece of it in order to check out Ferrari. All right, everybody, we've come to the last segment of the Timeless Movie Podcast. And on this segment, we're going to decide whether Ferrari is a timeless movie. For me personally, as of this moment, this film is not a timeless movie where I will rewatch it over and over again. It has really great parts. Again, the performances are some of the best of the year in regards to Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz. There's some beautiful cinematography shots when there's race scenes in regards to the Mila Migna race. There's again a lot of great stuff that's kind of shown, the different types of set designs and how the film was shot. But I really don't see myself watching this film over and over again. If I wanted to watch a racing film, I would definitely watch other films like Ford versus Ferrari or other films that I've seen in the past. And also, again, that same kind of con that comes back is, where did the story kind of take us, right? What was accomplished throughout the story? Really, the only big thing that was accomplished is Ferrari kind of keeping his company. But relationships, there still seems like there's open wounds, right? There was a lot of different ideas that were kind of thrown out there in the film. I was hoping that they would focus on just one. And again, if they were just focused on one specific aspect of maybe Enzo juggling his family life, maybe that would have made me enjoy the film a little bit more. But that does not, just because I say that this film is not timeless does not mean that this film is terrible. No way. This film is still a really good experience. And if you're again curious, or if you're into the Ferrari brand, definitely go ahead and check out this film. Again, it's in theaters. And if not, you can wait for it in streaming. But as of this moment, it is not a timeless movie for me. I feel like, again, there's nothing that really sticks to me besides the performances that would make me come back to watch it. But that's my opinion. What about you guys? Have you guys been able to check out Ferrari? What are your thoughts on this film? And did you think the performances were great? And what do you think? Did you think this film is actually timeless? Let me know down below in the comments. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to another episode. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 54 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode because we are going to be covering the top 10 movies of 2023. That's right. I'm going to be coming up with my list of the top 10 movies I saw this year, kind of give you my thoughts and little kind of tidbits as to why I thought that. And again, want to hear your thoughts. So definitely check out next week's episode so you can hear more about the top films that I enjoyed in 2023. All right, everybody. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your week.